Whoa. What was that?
It was a hummingbird, wasn't it?
That was humongous.
So Russell and I are here to give you a little heads up. My iPad had a little meltdown with iMovie, and I lost everything I was working on, and I had to start completely over on the desktop, which I'm not too familiar with. The software is quite different, so this podcast may turn out to be a little rough. Huh, Russell?
Yeah.
A little rough.
Yeah, a little rough.
Yeah. But please hang in there. I hope it'll get better. Thanks for watching.
Now
Hi. This is Victoria Knits, and I'm Victoria. And no, we're not at home. I have dragged you all along on another trip of ours. Kim and I have gone to the area of Polebridge, Montana, which is right now we are inside Glacier National Park. We are in the northwest corner of Glacier National Park, just a few miles, maybe 5 miles or so from the Canadian border. We're at a place called Kintla Lake, and as usual, our luck with lakes is not always great, and as you can tell, it's not a great view today. It's very overcast. It's a typical Memorial Day weekend in the United States. It's often rainy and overcast on Memorial Day. It's the first really good 3-day weekend camping trip in America, and most people really try to get out. But it is definitely overcast today. As you can see from the entry to the podcast, Nico is now crawling around. He stands up as often as possible. When Russell's in a good mood, he'll play really nicely with him. An update on Nico's eczema, there really isn't any change. They have tried so many different solutions, so many different creams and different kinds of baths, and you name it, they've tried it. So far, nothing has really changed for him in that area. I turned it a little bit because maybe you can see me now. It's pretty dark the other way. Anyway, I wanted to give a shout out to Renna. Hi, Renna in Texas. She said her son came up to the Polebridge area, I think it was last summer, and he really enjoyed it. I hope he had better weather than we are today. Now, I don't want to whine about the weather too much. I knew the forecast was looking pretty iffy, but I also wanted to get up here before tourist season really hits around here and things get super swamped in the, Glacier National Park. But Polebridge is one of the areas that is not near as popular. It's a dirt road coming up here. The road to Kintla Lake, where we're at right now, was pretty, it was kind of rough. But Kim's truck made it okay, and we did fine. And an update on our weather in Marion. In April, we had this. but in May we had better weather. And Kim has planted about 180 daffodil bulbs in our backyard, but it's pretty hard to tell by what you can see. And daffodils, the reason we chose those is because they're usually safe from being eaten by deer. But we've watched at least 2 deer come by and pick off a bloom. But if they really liked them, they'd all be gone by now. So that's a good thing. That's the Mad Hatter.
And it's it.
That's Alice.
Hey! A daffodil! It's a daffodil.
It is a daffodil.
That's it.
That's the rabbit.
He's moving. And what's this?
What is that?
Treasure cat.
Cheshire Cat. That's right, Russell.
So cute. So heavy. It's gonna drop.
He's kind of heavy.
He is heavy.
Nice job. And before I get to some info on the town of Polebridge, or what you might want to call the town of Polebridge, first we'll talk about some knitting. So since my last podcast, which has been a while, probably 5 weeks, I managed to finish 2 sweaters. The first one is this Inner Circle sweater by Drops Design. It's a free pattern. The yarn is Steadfast Fibers Wonderful Wool in the colorway Rainforest. And yes, it fit on my first try, although it's a generous fit. I would call it a generous fit. It's starting to sprinkle out here a little bit. It's a generous fit, but I don't mind. I also have an extra skein of that yarn left over, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. It's a really pretty color. I don't know if you can really see that there or not. There's a lot of variation in it. Kind of green and aquas. It's really quite pretty. I might make a hat. That's what I'm considering doing. And I wanted to show you another version of this sweater. Licia, or I don't know how she pronounces her name. She's on Ravelry. She agreed to let me show this picture of her Inner Circle sweater, which she made into this gorgeous dress. That's some dedication, isn't it? I think it's really, really pretty. The second sweater I finished is this Flax by Tin Can Knits, another free pattern. Probably most of you have knit that pattern. I frogged that title shawl I was working on. I just didn't really like it, and I decided to use the yarn on another sweater. I added the turtleneck because sometimes the flax sweater's neckline seems a little too open to me. I love this sweater. I combined that yarn with a Caron yarn in black, and I really like the combination. My niece Eva bought me this yarn when I visited her in Denver last summer. Thank you so much, Eva. I'm really going to enjoy it. Wow. What'd I go through, huh? I also finished the 2 pairs of socks I was working on in my last podcast. This is the House Targaryen pattern by Avalanche Design. It's another free pattern on Ravelry. The yarn is Merlot by Big Sky Yarn Co. Heels, toes, and cuffs are in her Camas Creek colorway. I really like the way these turned out. These will be an addition to my Christmas box of socks. Really liking those. I like that pattern a lot. It's really nice. I finished a second pair of socks, same pattern, House Targaryen. I was working on these last time too. The yarn is from Cappy at the Yarn and I. This is called Peppermint Stick. Peppermint Stick. Another pair of socks for my Christmas box of socks. I just had this red skein around the house, so I used it for the heels, toes, and cuffs. I love the way those turned out also. Really nice. And speaking of the Big Sky Yarn Company, I actually met the owner and dyer Cassie at our local yarn store at the Camas Creek Yarns in Kalispell back in early March. It was really nice to meet her in person and two of her daughters. And the turnout for her visit was fantastic. Her yarns are really popular. I bought that Merlot sock yarn I showed you, and I also bought this skein of raspberry cordial. This is worsted weight. Isn't that pretty? Really nice. That day, when she was visiting the Camas Creek yarn store, if you bought a skein of her yarn, you got a 50-gram skein of the Camas Creek colorway. That was really generous of her. It was really fun to meet her. I really enjoyed that a lot. Hi, Cassie, if you're watching. So nice to see you. So Polebridge is located about 22 miles south of the Canadian border and almost a 2-hour drive from our house. And this is what it looked like on the first day we came up. Completely overcast. Those clouds were hanging so low you could see almost nothing. But what you're looking at now is basically the entire town of Polebridge. And here's what it looked like the day we left. Beautiful blue skies. You could see the mountains in the distance. It was just lovely. It's the North Fork of the Flathead River that runs through this area, and that's why it's commonly referred to just as the North Fork area. You certainly couldn't see this beautiful mountain range the first day we got there, and this sits right behind the Polebridge Mercantile. And the Mercantile carries pretty much everything, and it needs to, because it is really the only game in town. And they have it all. Their baked goods are delicious. I had 2 of the Huckleberry Bear Claws during our stay. They sell coffee, which was pretty essential. You can also get access to the internet there. Surprisingly enough, we did not take advantage of that. Someone was selling some hand knit items. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought these socks looked great, and I thought the price was pretty reasonable considering that they were hand knit and hand dyed also. This is the Northern Lights Saloon. It sits right next door to the Mercantile. You can have dinner there and drinks. It's really, really small inside. This was the cabin we rented. It was called Kintla Cabin. It was really comfy inside. The bed was comfortable. There was plenty of room. Had a nice little wood stove. They supplied wood to keep you warm. The thing I was most excited about to see was actual electricity. I could plug in my iPad, which to me was a huge deal. They did have flush toilets available. It was a metal toilet though, and it's pretty darn cold. You could rent a shower. And after the restrooms closed for the night, you could make use of this little outhouse. One of the perks of being there over Memorial Day weekend was live music for free, and it was really good too.
I've been looking for something I've always wanted, was never mine.
This area contains all 5 of Glacier's ecosystems: grassland prairies, aspen parklands, mountain forests, subalpine and alpine tundra. The valley is busy with grizzlies, black bears, moose, coyotes, mountain lions, wolves, and elk. Bird watchers have documented 196 species of birds, over half of which nest here. And you're looking at the North Fork of the Flathead River, and that bridge, if you cross over it to the right, where we are right now, you will be in Glacier National Park. The river makes the boundary of the park. Hi. Yes, we had a little downtime this morning. It was really nice. And we decided to get out today and do a little hiking this afternoon. We've been hiking for 2.5 hours, and we are at a place called Hidden Meadows. That's all we know about it. The reason we decided to hike and leave the truck at our cabin at Polebridge is because of the price of gas there. They only allow you to buy 3 gallons, and it's $20 for those 3 gallons. So they come out to, what is that, Kim? $6.75-ish. $6.50, $6.75 a gallon. Pretty steep. So, you know, we want to save our gas. Anyway, yesterday while we were at Kintla Lake, I showed these socks, and when I looked at the footage, I realized you really couldn't see them. So here they are again. That's that Merlot yarn. Yeah, I've talked all about these, but I just wanted to show them again. Okay. And I'll show you these peppermint stick socks again. This was yarn from Cappy at the Yarn and I. And this was also that House Targaryen free pattern on Ravelry. Just wanted to give you a better look at them. I'll try to edit that video, but I'm not sure how much our computer at home can improve the lighting on that. But anyway, I'll give it a try. All right, on to some new socks. I've done the first one of this new sock, and this is, the pattern is Winter's Frost by This Handmade Life. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. The yarn is Oh Christmas Tree by Sarah Craft Yarn. She's on Etsy. I'll link her below. And just a reminder, there'll be links to everything, hopefully, I talk about in this podcast below. I really like these. These will be another pair for my Christmas box of socks. Isn't that nice? I used the Camas Creek for the heels, toes, and cuffs on this one. Really pretty. And I'll get started on that second one pretty soon. Another one I'm doing for my Christmas box of socks is this peppermint lace sock. It's by Dee Kissinger, another free pattern on Ravelry. She does it top down. I did mine toe up, so I reversed the pattern, and you might be able to see the little peppermint sticks, little candy canes on the pattern. I think it's pretty cute. I think you can see those in there. I did mess up one or two of them. I didn't care. I kept going. Also, there's a mistake on this one in the pattern, and thankfully Ravelry people left a nice note on it. Row 12 should read knit 4, slip slip knit, yarn over knit 7 instead of that. And the yarn is from Cappy at the Yarn and I again. It's called Scarlet Tonal. And I did just some ribbing on the foot because I get kind of paranoid if my foot isn't nice and tight. I like a nice, firm grip on my foot, and I didn't want to just do stockinette on that. Oh, and I knit these on a size 0 needle because the pattern calls for a 64 stitch on the leg, and I usually do 60 for myself, so I decided to go down to a 0 needle, and that worked out just fine. And I don't know what the white yarn is. I got that from okay. And another pair I'm working on, and we switched positions a little bit so you can see the hidden meadow behind me, is this pair of Porthos for my grandson Nico. These I cast on 64 on these, I believe. Yes, I cast on 64. The pattern calls for something like 82. It's way too much. And I almost have the second one done. It's at home, or it's at the cabin. It's in Polebridge at the cabin, but it's almost finished. I've almost finished it. And the yarn on this one is Knit Picks Hawthorne Hand Paint, and the colorway is Grants Pass. I used to live near Grants Pass, Oregon, so I thought that was kind of nice. So I almost have the next one done. I love this pattern. It looks so cabled, and I think it looks really nice on a plainer yarn. I usually have it on a more of a multicolored yarn because, that's what I like. But this is a much plainer pattern, much plainer yarn, and I really like it. So if you've watched this podcast before, you know that I make adult-sized socks for my 4 grandchildren, and this one will be for Nico. I bought him this little keepsake box. They each have their own keepsake box, so his socks will go in here. And yeah, they're adult-sized socks, so he'll remember me when he grows up. I'm also write some notes about the kids and put them in their box, and then I'll be putting pictures in each of them. So it's kind of a, just kind of a fun thing to do for the grandkids when they grow up. So yeah, as you can tell, the weather isn't fantastic today either. I hope the wind isn't messing with my microphone too much. It's windy, it's cloudy, but we haven't been rained on while we've been out, so that's a big plus. And you can see a little bit more around Polebridge. You can see some of the beautiful mountains and things like that. And I will show you some of the path and the views as we were coming up here. It was really, really pretty. It's a pretty walk. we needed it, you know. And tonight we're going to try to have pizza at Polebridge. Supposedly the Mercantile there has some pretty good pizza at night, so we're going to try that tonight. And then when we get back, we'll relax. But that's at least 2.5 hours from now, because we've got the return trip to make. So Kim and I did another 8-mile round trip hike today, and I'm pretty exhausted. We went to a place called Lower Quartz Lake, and I will show you some of the scenery along the way. There were beautiful, beautiful flowers. Gosh, I can't tell you how lovely those flowers were. Just gorgeous. That orchid, I just about died when I saw that. But it was a long hike to the lake. It said it was just 4 miles one way, so 8-mile round trip, but it felt like the longest 4 miles I've ever done. It was a 1,000-foot increase in elevation on the hike, so we had to do that twice. Go up the hill, down to the lake, back up the hill, back here. It was a long one, but I'll tell you what happens. During those long hikes, we always take our bear spray with us, and this is what it looks like. So that's a bear spray. You have to take the clip off when you use it, and then you just pull that trigger. You want to keep that clip on it because you don't want to spray yourself in the face. Also, you have to be pretty close to the bear for this to, you know, really do much good, because if there's any kind of wind, it's just going to blow this right out of the way, and the bear will just keep coming. So you got to wait till it's pretty close. But we always keep these available. But I'll tell you what, during that hike, I got so exhausted that I didn't care if we saw a bear or not, or I was just like, I'm over it. I am so tired coming back from that thing that I was like, yeah, if a bear showed up right now, I would just probably say, get out of my way. And that's why I'm treating myself to a glass of wine. And these wine glasses, Kim and I have 2 of them, and a friend of mine that I used to work with called Lucy gave these to us, and they are the best camping wine glasses. I have used them. We've used them at the yurt many a time, and they're perfect because they don't break. They're metal, but the rim, if you drink wine, you know, you want a nice thin rim around your glass. I sure as heck do. And this one definitely has. It does not disappoint. So, cheers. Hi. But here we are at Bowman Lake. And yes, it's very windy. And we don't have a beautiful blue sky, but just look at that view. It's gorgeous, isn't it? It did not disappoint today. And my birthday was in April, and my daughter-in-law and my son gave me this fringe supply bag for my birthday. I didn't realize how expensive these things were. Wow, pretty crazy. My daughter and son-in-law gave me a Montana Starbucks mug I have been wanting. And I was thinking about doing a knit-along for my birthday, mainly because when I was younger, I asked my mother why she named me Victoria, and she said she named me after Queen Victoria, so I thought it'd be really fun to do like a Queen type knit along, and you can look in my Ravelry group and you'll see all kinds of knit. I've got a little bundle of knitting and crochet patterns that are based on queens, but I decided that was a lot of trouble, and you know, I don't know, I didn't really want to make people knit something for the giveaway. So the main giveaway is going to be this yarn. It is from Tippy Tree Yarns. Isn't that beautiful? And the name of it is Queen Victoria. Perfectly appropriate. Queen Victoria. I think that's really, really pretty. So the first prize winner will get that skein of yarn. They'll also get this mug, which I'll insert a picture of, and they'll also get some progress keepers that I will insert a picture of. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a thread in my Ravelry group, and I'm going to ask you to tell me what kind of queen are you? Because when I searched on Google, when I Googled queens, you can imagine how many came up. All different kinds of choices, and you might be in there somewhere, right? So if you aren't on Ravelry, just leave a comment below the YouTube video and tell me what kind of queen you are. And then I also decided it'd be fun to offer another chance to win. And this one will be the second place prize. I saw Cassie at Big Sky Yarn Company do a giveaway on Instagram a while back, and she included a Starbucks Montana mug, which I thought was a really great idea. So the second prize will be this Starbucks Montana mug, which I'm going to insert a picture of. And the second place prize will also include this skein of yarn. Now I dyed this one myself. It doesn't have a name, but as I was picking out the colors for it, my daughter Vanessa said, "Oh, it's really cool that you're matching the Montana mug." And I thought, that was a good plan, wasn't it? Now I need to throw in some brown so I really do match the Montana mug. So yeah, I dyed that skein of yarn. It's meant to be self-striping, and it should be. I dyed it with food coloring as usual. The yarn is 40% alpaca, 40% superwash merino, and 20% nylon. Sorry, I'm watching out for hikers coming over this bridge. It's 125 grams. It's called Dye For Me Dancing Toes. And thank you, Carol, for sending me 2 skeins of that bear yarn. Obviously, it's come to use. So I dyed this yarn my usual method in the front yard. I had some helpers, including some chickens.
All three over here. Yeah, put this one over here. Right. All three. I got them all three, okay? So what do I do with all three?
You're helping me, aren't you?
Yeah.
With dyeing the yarn? Are you going to help me give it away on my podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. Here are my tools and my plan, and here is the yarn being dyed. And as I said, I will have threads set up for each giveaway in my Ravelry group, Victoria Knits. You can enter both threads, but I won't allow the same person to win both prizes. I want to spread it around a little bit. So if you prefer one giveaway or the other, you can enter just one of them. I think that, whatever you feel like doing. Anyway, I thought it'd be fun, and I'm really excited to have another giveaway on my podcast. That's it. So I talked about the giveaway I'm doing based on Queen Victoria. I'd like to call her my namesake. I don't know. Was my mom telling me the truth on that? I can't ask her anymore now, can I? But we'll assume she was. So, you know that I've been reading a book on Queen Victoria. Of course I have. It's been very interesting. Obviously, I've been marking a lot of pages. I'm not finished with it yet, and it looks like I'm only about halfway through, but she has so many notes in the back that I will actually be finished when I finish this. This is just a bunch of notes and bibliography and index and stuff. So that's not even, a big part of the book. So I just have this part to go. So of course, I'm going to talk about Queen Victoria. And if you look her up on Wikipedia, you'll find out that there's mosquitoes around here. You'll find out that she was born in May of 1819 and she died in January of 1901 at 81 years old. Her father was actually fourth in line for the throne, which made her fifth in line for the throne. So she, the chances of her becoming queen were very, very slim. But she did, because there were deaths and a lack of legitimate children. And she was just 18 years old when she was crowned Queen of England. She remained queen for 63 years. She had a split from her mother early in her teen years, and her father died when she was just over 1 year old. At 20 years of age, she married her first cousin, Prince Albert, pretty unheard of nowadays. During her marriage, she gave birth to 9 children. Wikipedia also tells you that she thought newborn babies were ugly, but from the book, it says, in later years, Victoria would reveal that she did not find babies endearing, especially newborns, with their scrawny, mottled limbs and startled reflexes. She has been criticized for calling infants frog-like, but this is not simply derogatory. Anyone who has nursed, bathed, or blown air on the stomach of a days-old baby will know that their limbs splay in an alarmed fashion called the Moro reflex. They do resemble frogs on their backs. Because of this, an enduring myth that the Queen lacked all maternal instinct has taken root in almost all major biographies. As Yvonne Ward from La Trobe University has demonstrated, the selection of Victoria's published letters was made by 2 men who rejected her correspondence with other women on matters such as babies, teething, and pregnancy as softer and less relevant. She did not say in these letters what effect childbearing had on her body, but she spoke often of suffering. It would not have been gentle on the small frame of a woman who did not reach 5 feet. It is likely that her uterus prolapsed in these years, and there is evidence she suffered enduring, painful gynecological problems. But the words she wrote in her journal at the time of having her children reveal a tenderness and optimism that have been forgotten. And I wanted to read this passage from the book. When Victoria next gave birth in April 1853 to a frail child she named Leopold, she took chloroform during labor for the first time. She had not been so fortunate when Arthur was born 3 years earlier. Dr. Simpson, an anesthetist, was brought from Edinburgh to administer it. He soaked a handkerchief with a small amount of chloroform and inserted that into a funnel the Queen could inhale through. She wrote in her diary, "The effect was soothing, quieting, and delightful beyond measure." Victoria's example encouraged a generation of women to try the first kind of pain relief available in childbirth. In doing so, they were ignoring the objections of doctors who suggested it might sexually arouse women, who would then try to seduce them while in labor, and priests who insisted that it was wicked to try to opt out from the consequences of original sin. It was a small step in the long march women took over the next century to try to gain control over their bodies. Thousands of relieved mothers across England followed the Queen's example. Dr. Simpson's first patient in 1847 was thrilled. The baby was nicknamed Anesthesia. That's pretty funny. So I'm doing this part of the podcast right beside our campsite. We have a campground here at Bowman Lake, and it's not fighting the wind like I was down there at the lake. I would love to have done this with that beautiful background of snowy mountains behind me, but it just wasn't reasonable. And also after that 8-mile hike, I feel like I deserve to sit down. On with some Victoria things. It's easy to forget that laboring women died mostly from uterine infection, for which there was no cure, despite the liberal doses of opium and brandy administered by doctors. When the Female Medical Society told doctors not to deliver children with hands dirtied by dissection rooms, they scoffed. Doctors claimed that the problem was not contamination, but excessive mental emotion of the women who died. And when I started reading this book, I didn't really know much about Queen Victoria. All I heard, I'd heard about the Victorian age and Victorian this and Victorian that. I really did not know much about it. And it's a very interesting book. I'll just say that. For 4 years before Victoria's birth, in 1815, Napoleon had been defeated at the Battle of Waterloo, and Britain rejoiced. At the end of the Napoleonic Wars, Britain was the world's only industrialized economy and the greatest naval power. But London was brimming with discontent. In 1821, half of the British workforce was under the age of 20. In the year Victoria was born, an act was passed to limit the hours children worked in factories and cotton mills to just 12 hours. To limit it to 12 hours. But it was rarely enforced. Children as young as 5 worked from dawn to dark in match and nail factories, gasworks, shipyards, and construction. It's unbelievable to me. I can't even wrap my mind around that kind of thing. In 1833, the Factory Act made it illegal for children under 9 years old to work, though it applied only to textile factories. In 1834, it was made illegal to apprentice boys under the age of 10 as chimney sweeps, but again, this act was not enforced. At the beginning of the century, 20% of the British population lived in towns or cities. By the end of the century, 75% did. Slums spread across London. Sometimes 30 or more people lived in a single room. When Victoria was born, food was cooked in open fireplaces. Horses carried messages. Half of the population was illiterate, and a narrow band of property owners were the only ones with political power. By the end of her life, people traveled by subway, telegraphs shot messages across oceans, education was compulsory, and women had some basic rights. Also, the idea of the Victorian age being named after her, according to the book, should more likely have been called the Albertian age or something after Prince Albert, because he worked extremely hard to help the British people, but it was him and not Victoria who was the one judging other people about their morals more often than not. Victoria usually allowed people to be themselves. Albert was the one with the extra strong moral code who expected everyone to live up to it. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert are considered responsible for introducing the idea of a decorated Christmas tree to the house to Britain. Prince Albert had been brought up in Germany where the tradition was normal, but for Britain it was a brand new idea. And the white wedding dresses we all are familiar with today, Victoria made them popular, and it had nothing to do with purity. She decided to wear a white wedding dress just to highlight the delicate lace of her gown and because it looked good on her. She did ask that no one else wear white on her wedding, aside from her bridesmaids. Until then, most women wore bright, colorful dresses on their wedding day that could be recycled for other occasions. When women did wear bridal white before Queen Victoria, the color was seen as an indicator of wealth, denoting that the bride's family could afford to have the dress cleaned. And as I said, I'm really enjoying the book. I do enjoy history. I like reading about stuff like that. So I'll insert a picture of our campground with Kim and I. So this is day 3 of our little trip. This will be the last day. Tomorrow we'll be heading home, and I'll try to wrap up this podcast then. I've asked Sally to send me her crafty story and some pictures, and I hope she does. But if she doesn't, I'll include them on the next podcast. But again, volunteers would be so really nice. I love sharing other people's things because people want to see stuff besides what I do. I thought the bear deterrents in the campground were really interesting. I wonder if a bear has ever figured out how to get into that trash can. And a few last photos of Bowman Lake. So pretty. About it. Here we go. Okay, so it's Tuesday. Kim and I have to go home today. And look at that blue sky behind me. Can you believe it? Yeah. The final day we have to go home and the sky is as blue as can be. Oh well. We stopped at Lake McDonald on our way home, which is in Glacier National Park again. And we stopped at Apgar, which is on one end of Lake McDonald, and I'll show you pictures of all the tourists there already. But the mountains are beautiful, the lake is beautiful, as you can see, and it was worth the stop. So I wanted to show you my last project I'm working on, and it is this garter squish pattern by Stephen West. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. The yarn is Red Heart Team Spirit Gold and Green. Now I'm making this for my son and his this for my son and my daughter-in-law, who are big Green Bay Packer fans. If you've watched this video before, you may have seen that. I am halfway through this blanket. I've used 8 skeins now, and I have another 8 at home, so it's half finished. I cast on 176 stitches on US 10 needles, and it seems to be working out pretty well. The striping is just whatever happens. It's inexpensive yarn, so they can wash it and put it through the dryer and take care of it really easily that way. So I don't know if they're watching this podcast that much, but it's not a Christmas thing or anything. I'm hoping to give it to them this summer when they come. So there's some things I call odds and ends. I watched Grantchester. I think it was Wendy that suggested Grantchester to me. And as you can see from the picture of the main character, that's probably a lot of the reason people watch that show, but I did enjoy it. And there's a new one called Ms. Fisher's Modern Murder Mysteries, which is the niece of the original Miss Fisher, supposedly. And so they try to carry on in that tradition, and it was decent. I've also been watching Dr. Finley, who I really enjoy that program. That's really good. I watched the Queens of Mystery, just one season so far. It's really light, and I thought it was kind of so-so. I did like Girlfriends on Acorn TV. That was different. It had some different twists in it. They only have one season so far, but I stayed up late watching that one night. And my latest one I've been watching is Kingdom. That's about a lawyer or a solicitor in Great Britain. It's very light watching, and doesn't include, I don't think there's much murder stuff in it, but it's light, and it was pretty good. Some of the characters are pretty cute. I also tried just 2 episodes of the show Harry. Way too dark for me. Could not keep up with that. I need some relief from all the bad stuff that happens when I watch TV. I just can't take that much. Speaking of dark, though, Game of Thrones just ended. Now, I'm not going to give anything away because I don't know who else has been watching it or how far you've gotten, so I'm not going to say a thing about that. But I couldn't resist this Skein of Thrones pin from Polka Dot Sheep. It was only $12 and it had free shipping. I thought that was pretty cute. I also bought this All Mine pin from Gigi Made It on Etsy, which I thought was really cute. And I have quit Knit Crate for now, but of course the last skein they sent was this beautiful one called Titmouse, and look at the colors in that. So pretty. I really liked that. I liked it so much I had to buy some more. I think I bought 3 more skeins because I was thinking about making a flax light or some kind of sweater out of it. I really like those colors. They're not my normal colors, but I really liked them. And for present from myself for my April birthday, I bought the Teal Torch Knits April colorway, mystery colorway, and it was Miss Marple. And this is what it looked like. The middle one is called Marple. The middle one's Kim's telling me to get some more light on this stuff. Thank you, honey. The middle one is called Marple, and the other 2 are called Holiday by the Sea and Afternoon Tea. I think those are really, really pretty. And her colorway, her June mystery yarn will be based on Father Brown. So I think that should be interesting. I also ordered 2 skeins from Cappy at the Yarn and I. She had overdyed these. She had overdyed these on her podcast. It was, the podcast was 2019 episode 3. And that's the name. That's actually the name of this one. Thought that was really pretty. And then she showed you how she overdyed this one. And this is called Tied in Knots. Isn't that lovely? I could not resist those. The price was perfect. Wow, she really gives a good price on that. And and I love that she shows you how she does these. So I thought that was really interesting. So I went ahead and got that. And I'm still not back on Instagram. I used to really enjoy Instagram a lot. And as soon as I say that sentence, I think what that means is I probably spent way too much time on Instagram. I have not quite got back on there yet. I probably will eventually. But you can find me on Ravelry as Victoria Jean. You can also contact me. You can email me at vjwilliams54@gmail.com. So if you want to shoot me a note or tell me something, Ravelry or email is just fine. And trust me, you won't be annoying me because, I don't get that much email. So if you have anything to say, go ahead and do it. If you want to volunteer some of your projects or your craft story to be on my podcast, that would be fantastic. If I find that Sally has sent me hers, by the time I get home from this trip, I will insert that somewhere. You will have seen that somewhere in this podcast. Also, speaking of Cappy's yarn, check out her trade options in her Etsy shop. If you have something you want to trade with Cappy, you can get some really good deals. She's pretty good at that. All right, so I wanted to ask him what he thought of our Polebridge trip. I really enjoyed it. Would you go back?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really? You would go back to Polebridge?
Sure.
Just not to Kintla Lake.
Right. I don't know. It was nice, but it's kind of hard to tell what was there because we couldn't see anything. It was too fogged in and too rainy, so we have no idea, but it was a 15-mile, very, very rugged drive on very narrow roads with a lot of traffic. So, yeah, it just wasn't a great drive. Bowman Lake was gorgeous, and we know that. It's a short drive on a great road, so, yeah.
And Polebridge, the stay in Polebridge?
Yeah, Polebridge was nice. Yeah.
I really liked it.
Good.
I really liked it. A lot of people up here have said to us, "You've never been to Polebridge? Oh my, you've got to go to Polebridge." So that has been on my list for a while, and I'm glad we went. It was a really enjoyable trip. There were some ups and downs, like Kim said. Kintla was all cloudy. We couldn't see much, so that was a big disappointment. The weather hasn't been fantastic this weekend, but we knew that going in. We have to we don't have to, but we try to plan our trips so that my daughter is either off or our son-in-law is off. So somebody's home to take care of the boys because we help out with the boys quite a bit at home. So normally we probably would not have planned something for this weekend, knowing that it was going to be a busy weekend. But it was kind of fun being up there and seeing the band and kind of meeting the owner of Polebridge. He seemed like a really nice guy. There's a lot to do in that area, and I wouldn't mind going back. And I really enjoyed doing it with you.
Me too.
Okay. So we're going to head home really soon. We're pretty close, and I have podcasts from here before when it was completely snow covered out here. I don't remember what month that was. February? January, February? It was completely covered with snow. But Kim remembered this spot, and he said, well, let's pull over here and finish your podcast. We have 3 new chickens. You might have seen the white ones when I was dyeing yarn. They're pretty friendly. We got them from our neighbor. He had to move to a spot that doesn't allow chickens, so he asked us if we would take them, and we said yes. They're identical. They're 3 whites. I don't know what the breed is. I've asked him, but I didn't get a response. It doesn't really matter. I'd just like to know. But I asked him what their names were, and he said, well, we don't name our chickens in case we eat them. So I named all 3 of them Chicolettas. And if you don't know where that name came from, you probably don't have little kids or grandchildren who watch Paw Patrol, because on Paw Patrol, Mayor Goodway's pet chicken is called Chickaletta. So now we just refer to them all as the Chickalettas, and so does Russell. And he really likes them. And they're so tame, sometimes they will let him pet them for quite a while, and he thinks that's pretty funny. I just want to remind everybody to enter for the giveaway. Don't use the word giveaway. I like to try to keep this to people that normally watch my podcast. I'm not going to say you have to be a subscriber, but it would really be helpful if you were. And it would be nice if you'd give this podcast a thumbs up. I have a feeling it's probably going to be one of my longer ones. And I don't know whether to apologize for that or not. It's just the way it is. Had a lot going on this time. So don't forget to enter the giveaway. One thread in the Ravelry group will be called Montana Giveaway. The other one will be called the Queen Giveaway. You can enter both. You can just enter one. You can enter none of them. If none of that stuff appeals to you, that's fine with me. I will be, Russell and I will be drawing a winner before the next podcast, which I'm not sure when that will be, but it's coming up. I also just wanted to say a word about my counselor. I have stopped seeing her, but I found her very, very helpful. Sometimes it's nice to just pull a third person in who is not emotionally involved in your life and can offer you some good advice and kind of take an outside view of everything and get you back on track. And I think that's what I really needed, and I really appreciated that. The Off the Porch segment, you know, it is what it is. Watch it or don't. It's up to you. Anyway, I think that's about it, believe it or not. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate you guys. And I will hopefully see you next time. Goodbye from Montana. And if you've ever watched this podcast before, you know I really like my chickens. But just take a look at those claws and you can see what kind of damage they can do out in a garden. Did you see what she got there? we do provide nesting boxes for our chickens, but they don't always like to use them. They'll lay eggs in the oddest places. You're making a lot of racket there, Brownie. Yeah, you are. Oh, you ate a nice little brown egg though, didn't you? And if someone tells you that chickens are really quiet, just listen to Brownie announcing the fact that she just laid an egg. Thanks for watching!
Got his eyes closed because he's looking into the sun.
Okay, we'll try again.
We're watching.
Are you ready, honey?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, let's do it again. You ready? Look at Poopa. Thanks for watching! And a special shout out to Gertie Ann. Thank you for that message. That was very sweet of you.
That was very sweet of you. Now what?